I guess Palsteron here, and today let's talk about the end game of Hexblast Mines. A lot of people have been hitting me up asking for like 100 plus divines version of the build, and I usually don't really do that. I just don't have enough time to test all of that stuff, and I don't like putting out hypotheticals, at least not about league starters. So in general, I will talk about stuff in this video that you can do more, that I have seen other content creators do, that I've seen actual video proof of being good. We're gonna take a look at PoE Ninja and what people were doing there, but in general, I want to shout out that I will be not doing most of these things for myself, because when I look at a league starter, I usually look at something sort of like an all-rounder build, right? I want to get to feared, I want to clear everything, unlock everything, and then I farm up like 30-40 divines, right? And I will reroll into something else, right? At that point, we have some more info about new stuff, so I kind of just want to go with the flow, probably going to go for a mapper or something like that. That being said, a lot of people want to stick with one build, and in that case, I think Hexblast Miner is actually a really, really good contender. Like, I don't think this build ever really falls off. It is a very much a non-typical league starter, I would say, in that regard. And we're going to talk about one version in particular that has caught my eye. And after that, we're going to talk about some upgrades to the normal version as well, because there's still a lot to do and a lot to improve. But let's start off with the one version that just seems incredibly strong, which is the Rathpith Globe version. Now, Rathpith Globe is usually quite expensive at league start. Like, we're talking several divines. And with Hexblast Mines being even more in the spotlight, I would say it could go even higher. Who knows? But if you look at Rathpith Globe in general, this is a shield that sacrifices life whenever you cast something, so that goes for your mines as well. But you get 5% increased crit chance and 5% spell damage per 100 life. So this guy, for example, is getting, with his life, 341 increased damage and 341 increased critical strike chance. Now, Hexblast Mines is kind of increased damage starved, so that already alleviates one of those problems. But in general, this is not a downside because of the combo with Dissolution of the Flesh. So if you're a Captain Lands aficionado, you already know this one. But basically what it does is it gives you 30% more life. But now whenever you take damage, you don't really take life damage. It just reserves life. For example, look at the life globe under me. The life that you're currently at has absolutely no bearing, right? Which basically makes the shield free. The only thing that matters is whenever you take damage, it's gonna reserve life, and if it reserves life down to 0, then you die. So that's kind of nice, right? You can do whatever you want with your life, so you can just literally go for stuff like Rathpith Globe, and it's completely free. That is huge. You know, there's a few downsides with this build that I want to talk about. Scaling wise though, I don't think you will really beat this version. Now, to gain a lot of life, a lot of these builds are using Chaos Heart and then an 8-link helmet. One thing I'm thinking about is if they're actually not going to use Sandstorm Visage and then maybe go for something like a Belly of the Beast with like +2 levels or something. That's definitely something that could happen, but that's for another day. That's something you guys have to POB yourself. Making a helm like this is obviously really hard, so that would be more budget, but I wonder it might actually be better. Now, one thing to make it feel less awkward is definitely mitigating dots. You need to be Elmate immune most likely, and you should be at high Chaos Res and stuff like that. But in general, I don't really know. You guys will have to try this out for yourself. I'd be really surprised if this many people are playing it and it's not just a banger of a build. Now, on YouTube, I didn't really see many versions running around, but I saw PoE Boda, who has some POBs down here. I obviously have no idea what he's saying in the video, but it looked pretty damn solid. But with that out of the way, I want to talk about some endgame upgrades for the normal version, so to speak, which, like I said, I think will be outscaled in endgame by that version. How expensive that's going to be, it's hard to say. Some of those uniques could go up pretty crazy. But if you just want to make small adjustment, let's say you just went to the endgame section and you're like, pal, I have all of these items already. What do I upgrade next? This is basically the section for you. Now, if you're a veteran, you can literally screenshot this and go your merry way. If not, I will give you some context on why I chose some of these things and maybe how to obtain them. First up, we have the combo of Wand and Shield, which both can give plus to skill levels, right? For example, here, +1 to all Chaos Spell skill gems. And then there's also one for just spell skill gems in general. As you can see here on my wand, I only currently have one single prefix, so there's prefixes open to get that. It's going to be hard to get this wand and +2. That's going to need a fracture, basically. One thing I want to point out, same with the shield. Anyways, you would probably remove the energy shield. At that point, you won't need it for Eldritch Battery. One thing I want to note, though, is that Hexblast's reservation with mines increases per level. Its mana cost increases, so the reservation also increases. So for example, if you look here, unreserved mana, right? If I go up, you can see it goes lower and lower. So just make sure that you have that figured out before you make that upgrade. We then have a Sandstorm Visage with Enchant. Now, Hexblast damage is the easy one. but Grace Reservation Efficiency is also really strong. Problem with unique helmets always is, if you want an enchant on this, you're not going to farm it, right? It's like literally impossible. You would have to go to TFT and pay somebody to farm it for you. So now you have to get a second one, because you still need the one for playing, right? And they're going to need like 24 hours. So while you're playing, you have to now farm another Sandstorm Visage, then give it to them, right? Wait 24 to 48 hours until they have it. And it's probably also going to cost you 5 to 10 divines. So just be aware of that whenever you want to make that upgrade. Grace Reservation Efficiency might be huge to get a lot of the nodes away here. Like, for example, these two absolute cringe points you could probably respec. Now, then you can also get a double corruption on your body armor, right? So in the endgame section, I have +2 AoE gems. This can also be +1 gems if you have it in power. It's basically the same at that point. But if you can get +2, +1, that's GG. If you can get something like +2 and reduce critical strike damage taken, that's also huge. At this point, Lightning Coil is also an option, right? Lightning Coil is going to be pretty rough when it comes to colors early, but at this point, you should also have the money for Tainted Chromatic Orbs, and then you can color your Lightning Coil. The harder thing will probably be getting the res somewhere else, right? Because going from Cloak of Flame to Lightning Coil, you lose like 130 resistances. As for gloves, here we have Alva Gloves. Alva Gloves are incredibly strong. Now, incursion mods are basically these right here. They're like hybrid. You get the res that you would get anyways, but then you also get, for example, increased damage with hits against chilled enemy, added fire damage against burning enemies, and crit chance against shocked enemies. These are also quite hard to craft, and either somebody got lucky when they dropped them and they're gonna sell it to you, or you're gonna need a fracture on this. Out of these three, just remember, if you're not running skitterbots anymore, you're not chilling with Hexblast. You're igniting, shocking, and freezing, right? So then only these two are really good for you. Now, as for boots, you can get ailment avoid boots, but it's kind of wasted because you're already ignite and shock immune. I guess if you really wanted to, if you're doing like something with alt ailments, like if you're doing simulacrums maybe, I don't know, not really sure, you would craft it with essences. In general, I would get most of your res from it and just try to get maybe a 35% movement speed roll. Then we have a Maralene's with additional curse. I'm not 100% sure how crazy this is. You can also just get res or some other implicit, but you could probably drop both of these. Like, this node right here isn't that great. You'll probably still go for the AoE. That's something you have to decide. If you don't care about the AoE, you could straight up save 5 points. So that is definitely something to look into. You would lose the all attributes. You just have to get it back somewhere. In general, that's probably the best corruption. Also, just a quick announcement, because people have asked me why I'm not like catalyzing this with crit, right? If you look at it, it actually is worse than the normal version. And the reason for that is, not only does the crit multi scale up, the less crit also scales up, and that comes out to a negative overall. So don't do that. And then we have a better curse on hit ring. If you look into my endgame, this is literally the ring that I have, right? Obviously, you could get a lot of cool stats on there. Maybe you could like fracture the frostbite and like craft crit multi on it or something with essences. That's up to you. Maybe you can get even a Vermilion ring for 7% life. Would also be huge. Then you can deafening craft your heavy belt. So deafening essences go actually higher than the one I have in my POB here. As you can see here, if you craft with deafening, it goes from 18 to 21%. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but 5% can be quite a big of a difference. The Shrieking goes from 14 to 17. The reason I put Shrieking into my POB is the cost is just way lower. You can roll more, so your other stats will be better overall. But in endgame, once currency is not as much of an issue, that's definitely something you should do. However, it's not like this has like high priority or something like that. Next up, you want 4-stat jewels. The GG would be if you get double crit multi, throw speed, and life, right? The jewels I have currently here are just to substitute your res, because I know once you're going to get into endgame, and now you have Sandstorm Visage and Maralene's, you're going to lose a lot of res, and you're going to have to make up for that. Life, Mind Throwing Speed are the most important stats on your jewels. Crit multi is also nice, but you're going to have a boatload from Maralene's, so that's not the end of the world if you don't have it. You can also get stuff like spell damage. You should actually probably POB that first before you make the buy. Spell damage might even be better depending on your setup. As for Forbidden Flash Flame, I'm actually not sure. I think these are very overrated on a lot of builds, because if you think about what you can get, like life ×2, throwing speed ×2, like 4 crit multi rolls versus, I don't know, deadly infusion, it's not really that good on this build. We're going to be absolutely blasting, so not really sure how you could leverage that. Trickster also doesn't look too fancy. Maybe like Spellbreaker and you don't go Eldritch Battery and you fix your mana elsewhere. Sure. Now, when it comes to gems, these are some things that I will do as well, right? Get an Awakened Void Manipulation level 5 is going to be huge. Obviously, at level 5, you get the +1 to Chaos Gems on top of everything else. These are probably going to be quite expensive leveled though, because EXP carries are a lot worse now. And I don't know about simulacrums. Maybe people are just going to farm XP in simulacrums again, and it's going to be fine. But overall, this is something you want to have very badly. So if you play a lot, you can also get one early and just level it yourself, right? Now, Awaken Blasphemy is a very interesting one. Because Blasphemy always reserves 35%, but Blasphemy only 32%. On top of that, it has better AoE, making it a little bit more consistent. And it gives you +1 to curse skill gems. So at that point, I might be thinking, maybe that is actually a thing I want to swap over Profane Proxy again. And also, now that you're in endgame, you might be able to craft a better ring, right? So your second ring is also going to be way more competitive with Profane Proxy. So that's just something I'm throwing out there. I haven't tested it or POB'd it. Decide for yourself. Empower 4 is always strong. Now, Empower 4 doesn't really need to be here. It just increases your reservation, and you have a lot of other really good support gems. The only reason I would use an Empower 4 is if you had a +1 in your Cloak of Flame, because that also counts for the Empower. Then it's probably GG. Otherwise, probably better to allocate your resources elsewhere. And I guess one thing I didn't really talk about in my video is trap and mind damage. I mean, it's really good against bosses, but I just don't like the less mind throwing speed, right? I just don't. While mapping, it is absolutely terrible. But if you put it here, right, you can see that it has an anomalous quality, which is quite strong. Reduces your mana cost, reduces your life cost, and also the reservation of the mines. So if I click this right here, you can see over me, it goes down a little bit. So if you want to fiddle around with that, also cool option. And then at the end here, you have the level 21 spell totem, which is just a little bit of a thing at the end. I understand that spell totem is kind of dumb. I hate spell totem myself, right? Don't get me wrong. So one thing is they die a lot, right? We're not a totem build, so we have no totem life, no totem res. Stuff like extra levels can make a big difference. I think it gets like 13% more life or something per level. So once again, level up your spell totem. If you can get a 21, that's also nice. Yeah, that's about all I have for endgame. Like I said, I will do some of these things myself, but definitely not all of it. I will put enough into the build where it can clear feared comfortably. I'm not mechanically skilled or anything like that. And then I will probably move on to the next build. But in general, I hope this could help you out a little bit. Definitely look up the Rathpith Globe version, though. It might just be completely busted. I haven't ever played it, but it looks incredible in PoB at least. Also, there will be another Q&A video probably, if I can get enough questions together that I haven't answered already. So also look out for that the day before league start. But yeah, with that being said, because I still have a slogan. See you next time.